Well, hey there. It's me again, Neil, starting a new project. In the kind of explained last time, it's a lot of stuff from past generations that couldn't quite get thrown away. And I'm the guy to finally see what I can do with it. Today, I'm going to start on this desk vanity sort of thing. When my grandparents, my mother's parents, were downsizing, I was about 15, and they had really pack ratted stuff since World War II. And between what we could use in our house and our garage, really, we could only fit about half of it, a third of it. And I'd helped out. And so my mother asked me, she said, "Hey, you can pick one thing and we'll make room for it for helping." And so I picked this. Now, what you don't see is a really big mirror. This is kind of an Art Deco 30s, 40s vanity. I think it's called a waterfall vanity because it kind of is smooth here on the edge, maybe. It obviously needs some structural work first, and then the mirror we'll get to later. But I think that's pretty much as is. It has some darkening in spots, but I see these other YouTube channels where they go buy a new mirror and they've got all these fancy techniques to make it look like it's 100 years old. So I'm not gonna re-mirror the mirror or anything. That's just part of it. But I'm gonna try to make this look pretty nice. I'd originally thought that I wanted to jump right into something fun like the Atari or a record player. But just a few weeks ago, my wife was saying, well, the 8-year-old, she needs a little desk here would be what we need. And of course, as any smart go-getter is, you need something, you go buy it. So my time is limited here. This is perfect size, perfect capability, but it's not usable right now. And I've got to get this done and in there before somebody just goes buy something off the boat that's just kind of particle board and made to look old when I've got the real thing here. Okay. So I'm about 30 seconds into the job now. Let's see, going through the drawers, we've got some consumers profit sharing grain stamps. I think I remember grain stamps. My grandmother, they were from the Depression. But wow, there's like a whole book of grain stamps. I wonder if I can still use those at the grocery store. Probably not. Hey, look at this. A U.S. looks like a brass lock with the key. We have a marble egg with its own stand. I think I've seen these before. If anybody knows the origin of these being a popular thing, let me know. All right, so I'm going to put the drawers aside for now. Each of those is just its own clean project to work on. I'm going to really need to get this structurally sound. First thing I'm going to do is get a leaf blower out and just that'll do 90% of my cologne for me. All right, so looking at the back here, this is thin plywood. It's really warped. No one sees it. I'm not going to try to refurbish that. I'll just cut something out similar for it. Same thing over here. Let's see what the real structural issue is here. This tongue here goes into here. It's got some hardware here. It's almost like this was made to come apart. No, there's some over here. These are actually, instead of nails, they're like something that's used to hold things together. Okay, so I'm learning stuff. So I think what I'm going to do is restore, without the last little bit of polish, but pretty much fix everything before I put it back together. Because it's going to be easier for me to like take this half and spin it around upside down without it being the whole thing together. This is still pretty sturdy, but yeah, that's what we'll do. So let's see, eeny, meeny, miny, mo. I think I'll start taking a really good look at this and get it ready to go. All right, so here's my triage on this first piece, which I think will kind of let me know what I'm looking at overall. Took the veneer off, and structurally, this is our biggest issue. This board has some water damage or something, and it's really got a good warp to it, and that'll be a real problem because the veneer is just going to go across it. And so if you have any gaps or anything in that, the first time somebody puts a cup on it, it'll just crunch through the veneer. It really has to be flat and full contact with the veneer. There's probably some way of replacing this. A few options, right? I could figure out some way to get this wet again and then repress it flat. That'd be neat, but I don't have that. The other thing would be just to get it nice and secured in there, and then just fill in the top with Bondo or wood fill or something, and then sand it flat. It's going to be a good amount of wood filler to do that. I think what I'm going to do is just take this junk piece of wood back here and cut out a replacement for it, because that's really strong and flat. And remember, this is all going to be under veneer, so it doesn't matter if the wood type's not the same. This is, by the very nature of veneer furniture, this is kind of junky wood anyway, because that's why they use the veneer, to make it cheaper, and it looks, just the surface looks good. I cleaned everything inside. I sprayed as I went with some sort of OxyClean mildew sort of stuff. I don't recommend that or not recommend it. It's just, if I'm going to be wiping down everything anyway, I figured I might as well. And the real gotcha here is going to be any sort of weird smell with this thing. You get it looking nice, but it still has that old house smell. That's not going to fly. So I did a lot of that, and once I get this all back together, I'm going to paint some sort of sealant on the inside, just to really make sure that there's no old house smell to it. Let's see, we also have some water damage or termites or something. This is still structurally solid. I can't like push my finger through it. Anyway, it'll support the weight of the table, but that does not look like what you want. So I'm going to fill that in with wood filler, so that it looks like a nice cubicle type of thing there. I'm going to get all I'm going to sand and strip all of the existing stain off. All right, so what I've done here is I added like a little support for the weight of this that I cut out. That wasn't there originally, but this whole thing was one sort of bent piece of wood. It's broken here, so now it needs a little support. I'm not too worried about exactly recreating the original techniques, since this is not visible, and this is not a museum piece anyway, just trying to get some use out of it. So I'm going to get this into there. I'll try to nail this onto here, nail it to these sides, and that should be pretty secure. And that won't be a problem because the veneer is going to go over this. So a flat nail head's not going to hurt anybody's feelings. All right, so we got this on pretty well. It's going to need some filling in here. But now we're going to get down to sanding the sides and stuff, and then the little intricate spots we'll use some sort of solvent. Okay, so let's get to it. All right, so we did the paint stripping. It worked. It's messy. Here's my review on that. It didn't seem like anything was happening at first. After about 2 hours, and the instructions say 1 to 24 hours, depending on temperature. After about 2 hours, I could get the goop off and then rub with a little bit of pressure and get most of the stain left off. But now I've got a mess to clean up. I've been going over this for a while with damp paper towels. The instructions say damp paper towels, damp sponges, and then it says you can hose it off. I really don't think I should put this in the driveway and hose it off. But I'm going to worry about it later, I guess. But The last thing you want to do is use finish stripper and then put finish on top of any of that. It obviously doesn't sound like a good recipe. And I'm sure even I can like find little places and find slimy residue in here. So I'll worry about that. Maybe go over it with a Brillo pad once it really dries out well. The bottom line is, I think I'll only use it on places where I absolutely need to. So for instance, this curved spot here, I was gonna just do the stripper on because it's gonna be kind of tedious with the sander, but not impossible. But I'm gonna sand that. That's gonna be just fine with the sander. Okay, so all right, so I think I've kind of got my foot in the door on this pretty well. So I want to start working on the other side. The thing with the other side is it still has the center part hooked to it. I'd like to get that off because I can't really do a good job with the veneer behind it or finishing it. And this is just this is really a mess on the inside. So I think I may be able to just pry it off this way because I can see where the nails are at. All right, so that's the next project, is to get this tabletop actually back together into one solid piece. All right, so I want to show you where I'm at now, basically with this. I've done about 90% of the sanding. Okay, there's some fine tuning to do with the small stuff, but I'm going to save that until just before finishing. You know, reason being, if this all falls apart, I open something up and it's just full of termite eggs or whatever, then I don't want to do that last 10%, which takes as much energy as the first 90%. I'm going to get on to the structural stuff now. Okay, so here's what we got. For the other side, this side, I'm just doing sandpaper on these. That glue stuff really didn't sit well with me. And not the glue, but the orange goop. I'm still like got goop on that one. So we'll see how that goes. But you know, these are straight lines. It's not that hard to just get out a piece of sandpaper and get them. I think I'll save the orange goop for, you know, like an eagle head or something that's really, really specific. So also over here, this is the center desk. So I've got these 90-degree things on it, gluing this together. This is the one that I fabricated. So I'm going to glue this down. I'm going to have to fill this in, get that really stabilized. All right. Haven't had to do too much with these yet. I filled in some of these cracks with wood filler because like I said before, you really can't have any holes under here because something punches it and it's going to go right through the veneer. Okay, so we're going to get a solid foundation under that. Pretty much all of the drawers had some issues. Nothing too spectacular though, but there was stuff peeling off. Most of them had some warped corners that needed to be re-glued. I don't need to go into all of that in detail. Pretty self-explanatory, I guess. All right, this is the left is the original. The right is just kind of a hacked up fabrication. But this is a pretty vital piece because this is what goes, it hangs under here so that when the drawer comes out, the back can't ride up and the front fall down. That's old furniture, that's really frustrating when the drawers are all, you got to jerk up and down as you pull to get them out. So I definitely want a new one of these in there. And I fabricated some back spots here, the back panel. Okay, that'll go in there. I'm not going to put those on yet because I really want to get up in there and coat everything, put a coating of something up there. Because again, they don't smell that bad now, but you leave them in a closed room or something, and you start to get that old furniture smell, not in a good way. So I'm really gonna seal every square inch of this. Okay, so another little piece of good news. The handles looked like they were painted like a copper or brass, and it was almost all gone, but it turns out that I could put these in some diluted vinegar for a while and then get some soft scrub and kind of bring back a pretty good luster. Could probably put them in like a polisher of some sort, tumbler, but I don't really need to do all that. But it's nice to have a little bit of a glow on the whole thing instead of just in some spots where it's been rubbed. All right, so now we have we're getting to the mirror, obviously a central part of the whole deal. So the condition here, the mirror itself has some weathering, decay around the edges. I'm not going to attempt to fix that. It's still it's definitely usable. It's just that the edges has some bad spots, some sketchy spots. All right, now it's the wood. I'm going to attempt to just take some fine steel wool and just to kind of refurbish this a little bit. Maybe touch up the edges, but I'm a little bit over this whole project. And to redo this, I'd have to take the mirror off. It's got some inlays here that are a little bit beyond me to completely repair. And this part of the furniture didn't really get touched much, so there's not really any big issues with it. So I think that I can just neaten it up a little bit. All right, so I did a little corner here to kind of test that out. It would be really hard. It would have to be really bad for me to kind of switch courses. I think this looks pretty good. I steel wooled and will restore a finish, and I think that brings it back to looking pretty fresh. You know, I didn't want this to just be kind of dusty compared to everything else, but I think that's gonna do me just fine. Then I'll flip it over and polyurethane the back again, just keeping any old wood smells from appearing. All right, so I'm pretty far along into the finishing stage. What I've decided to use is shellac, amber, because that's what I had. Shellac is kind of my go-to for finishing. A few reasons, I guess, that I'll give you is it's kind of old school. Most of the stuff I do is old school. If you bought something 150 years ago, it was probably either just oil stained, you know, for like indoor use, doesn't get touched a lot, or if it had like a gloss sort of protectant, it was probably shellac. It's been around a long time. I think it's made from insect wings or something, and it's just dissolved in an alcohol base. So it's pretty forgiving. If you paint or you apply the shellac, there's a big blob or whatnot, You just go over it again later, and the wet shellac just dissolves the dried shellac. And so if you need to do a touch up on something, it's pretty seamless, because you're not really like painting over the old stuff. It really kind of blends in and redissolves the old stuff and then goes back down. It also means that I don't have to throw away a paintbrush every time I touch it, because you just put the paintbrush in alcohol and it clears out. If you were doing a hobby table for a 5-year-old or something, then you might want more of the modern stuff that's really almost like an epoxy, just glass hard. But I find that shellac is tough enough for most of the stuff I do. And every few years gets a water stain or something. It will come up with water or alcohol, of course, and leave stains. But you just pull the can out, find the spot you don't like, and just kind of reapply it. So this $100 bill is going to go under this. All right, so if Savannah ever gets the attention span to watch this whole video, then she'll get the $100. All right, well, here we are. I think we finally finished this project. And so how do I feel about it? I'm pretty happy with it. You know, in your mind, you always picture that you're going to redo it and it's going to look like complete new, most expensive furniture that was ever made. And you get from a distance, it looks okay. It looks okay up close. But if you're really inspecting it, you can tell the veneer is not completely flat. I'm no expert. It doesn't trick you into thinking it's solid teak or mahogany, because it's not. But I'm glad I did it. It's been on my to-do list since I was 15, and that's mostly what it was about. And then a project with the kid too. And now this is finally off of my list. Now what I would say is that it was in pretty rough shape. If I was driving by a garage sale and saw another one and it said, free, haul away, I'd pass on it. The veneer and stains and just supplies was about $200. And I don't know that I could go out on the street and sell it for $200. But we needed something about this size. I had it. It's been on my list forever. So I'm glad I did it.